We're all busy. Time is important. I don't want to waste my time on cardio that's not getting me a huge impact. So what I've done is I've compiled the exercises that are the worst forms of cardio for fat loss. Okay, but I'm not just going to give you the things that are bad. I'm going to give you some different things that you can try instead. Different ways that you can hopefully get a better fat loss result and stop wasting some time. So let's go ahead and dive in. Jumping right into it, the first one that I want to address is the elliptical. Okay, now before I start bashing the elliptical, let me first come right out and say that if you're getting up and moving and the elliptical is the only way that you can keep moving and get your cardio in, it is not a bad thing. There's no such thing as a bad form of cardio if it's the thing that you can adhere to. Okay, I cannot overemphasize that enough. Do what works for you. But the elliptical has a couple of problems. Okay, number one, you are in a fixed plane of motion with very little stability muscles involved. Okay, not only are you barely moving your knees up and down, you're really just gliding through the hip flexors. Okay, and then you're at this kind of steady state intensity where you might be able to get yourself into that fat burning zone decently, but you're going to adapt very fast because you're not recruiting a lot of muscle fibers. Okay. Additionally, it's one of those things where it just becomes lackadaisical. Okay, most of the people that you see on an elliptical, and I don't want to sound like a meanie here, but they look the same way. You see them at the gym, they go on the elliptical and they look the same way for years. Okay, they go in, they're doing their time and that's it. Cross training is very important. If you do the elliptical, that's cool, but maybe you should go and try something else, okay? So the next thing that's going to be the worst form of cardio, believe it or not, is going to be the beloved Stairmaster. Now I have a Stairmaster and I use it and I think it's awesome for getting my heart rate up a little bit and getting warmed up. But look at the biomechanics of it. Okay, here's what's going on. You have a revolving set of stairs. They are moving. Okay, so that means when you step up, you are effectively not pushing all of your body weight back up because the treadmill portion of the actual stairs is also bringing you down. You're just staying level. You're not actually bringing yourself up. Okay, so it's not like climbing the flights of stairs that it suggests you are. Does that mean that it's bad? No, but you're really just lifting your knees up. Okay, that's really all that you're doing with it. So I don't necessarily recommend it as like the optimal fat loss tool, although it does start to break a sweat pretty quick, even without getting the heart rate super high. One of the things that I recommend doing with a stair climber is use it as a post-lifting tool. So if you do resistance training and you've already burned through glycogen, it's a great way to just kind of get the heart rate up. Okay, I'm not saying it's bad, but it's just not as good as people think, okay? Which kind of leads me to the next one, like any form of real specific steady state, okay? I'm not suggesting that going out and doing cardio and going for a run is bad, okay? I was an endurance athlete before I was a strength athlete, and I still consider myself an endurance athlete with how much I run, but there's a very important rule. Any kind of steady state cardio, whether it's running, biking, elliptical, Stairmaster, whatever, needs to have varying intensity. If you just go out for a run and you run at the same speed every day and you run at the same incline, you run the same route every day, you will not get the results. You will adapt, okay? And it's going to become where you're essentially just walking, right? Your run becomes a walk because you're not adapting. You're not actually triggering a stress response. Are you burning some calories? Yes, but it's going to get continually easier, right? Which I kind of want to address a quick thing that I've discussed in another video, running versus cycling. Okay, if you are willing to push the intensity a little bit, running is usually going to be better than cycling, okay? Now, cycling has its benefits. Less concussion, less impact on the joints, things like that. It can be better on the back. You don't have the compression. You don't have that spinal compression that can happen. So there's a lot of benefits there. And I've seen people that get absolutely shredded using the bike. But if you're trying to figure out, like, should I go for a bike ride or should I go for a run? Running is going to involve more of the body, okay? There is more muscle recruitment. Okay, and there is a significant amount of fat that is utilized in that effect. There's something like a 37% increase in the catecholamine response, like adrenaline, epinephrine, and stuff that is secreted when you run versus when you bike, which means that you are activating more of what are called beta-2 adrenergic receptors, meaning you can recruit more fat with running than you can with biking. But again, the best solution for you is the one that works and the one that you can stick to. I can't overemphasize that enough. Okay. The next worst form of, I call it cardio, but it's really just a terrible exercise, is going to be taking isolation movements and doing them really heavy. Now, what do I mean by this? Let's say you want to do a bicep curl with one arm. You want to do a concentration curl. Doing that kind of move heavy is really only frying the nervous system. It's not getting you a lot of metabolic benefit. Okay, let me put this into a different perspective. If you're gonna fry the nervous system by doing something really heavy, like in a 5-6 repetition range, you're better off doing that with a compound movement. Squats, deadlifts, lunges, things like that. Trying to go really heavy in an isolation move isn't getting you a lot of benefit, because the benefit of targeting the whole body with the central nervous system is some of the CNS effect you get and the excess post-exercise oxygen consumption that occurs afterwards. That's not to say that isolation moves are not good. Isolation moves, as far as caloric burn and metabolic effect, are better off to be used to get that lactic acid burn, okay, that lactate response. So what I mean by that is if you're gonna do a single arm curl or you're gonna do some kind of specific isolation move, you're better off going for the burn than going heavy, okay? The lactate response, okay, that lactic acid buildup, the burn you're feeling, that's hydrogen ions. That's not necessarily the lactate, okay? So when you have lactic acid, you get that burn. Lactic acid is dissociated into lactate and then into hydrogen ions. The hydrogen ions create a burn, and the lactate sends a signal to your brain to trigger adaptation. Okay, you are much more likely to get a metabolic adaptation in a smaller muscle group from a lactate response than from a central nervous system response. Okay, regardless, any kind of lifting that you are doing, whether it's triggering a lactate response through an isolation move or full central nervous system stimulation through like a squat, a lunge, a deadlift, protein consumption is going to be pivotal. It's very, very important. That's how you get the mTOR response, and that's how you actually recover. Today's video sponsor is ButcherBox. So when it comes to protein, if you want beef, if you want chicken, grass-fed beef, all this stuff that's delicious and awesome, make sure you check them out. You can get it delivered right to your doorstep. Super easy, super convenient. I've been using them for years. They've been a sponsor on this channel for years. You log in, you choose what cuts of meat you want, you choose what beef you want, what chicken you want, what kind of fish you want. They have everything, and then it gets delivered to your doorstep, and you can get it on a monthly recurring, super simple. So anyway, they're a sponsor of today's video. They have been on this channel for a while, and there is a special link down below because of that. So you drop down the description tab, and you can see that link for ButcherBox. So check them out after this video. Okay, so outside of protein requirements, which whether cardio or lifting are going to be important, let's talk about something that is super popular right now, walking. Is walking going to be beneficial when it comes down to fat loss? Well, there's something I could probably do a separate video on this entirely, but it probably would be pretty short. That's comparing the effects of your specific workout in the morning versus just moving throughout the course of the day, okay? Here's the deal. If you look at your step count, and I'll use an example. I went to Disneyland a couple of months ago, and when I was walking around with my family at Disneyland, at the end of the day, I looked at my watch and I saw that I had clocked close to 30,000 steps, okay? 30,000 steps, not even feeling like it. I didn't feel like I walked 20 miles, okay? And realistically, I was pretty close to it. And I look at the calories that can be equated from that. Okay, being active is much more powerful than having the perceived exertion of a workout. If I go into the gym in the morning and I kick my butt for 45 minutes, there's a maximal amount of calories I can burn in that 45 minutes. Okay, if I am, realistically, like hypothetically, if I'm going into a workout for 45 minutes and I'm pushing it at my maximum intensity, I don't think I could really get more than like 700 calories burned. I just don't. I might be able to push it a little bit more depending on intensity, but there's a limit, right? There definitely is a limit. But we have this perception that because the workout was so intense, that we are getting more of a benefit than we actually are. Not saying you don't get a benefit, but we think that perception that, oh wow, I really worked hard, and then we're kind of sedentary the rest of the day because we justify it because we got our workout in. When in reality, the guy that went into the gym for a quick 20-minute power pump session, then got out, and then walked around with his family at Disneyland is burning way more calories and having way more metabolic benefit. I would argue that one of the reasons I stay so lean year-round is I go on a crud load of walks. I walk with my dogs, I walk with my kids, I walk with my wife. We walk everywhere. Our date nights, we walk to the grocery store, we walk to dinner. Like, we do that not just for fun, but because we know that movement is really the key here. So if you're trying to figure out like what form of cardio should I do, the goal is to do it consistently and do it periodically throughout the course of the day. Okay, that is the secret sauce. I'm telling you, movement is the secret sauce, not what specific kind of move you do during a workout. But that being said, people still focus on calories and it still matters. So I want to address two more things. One is the exercise intensity, okay? If you look at low, like just intensity cardio, if you look at what substrates are used for fuel, you see that, oh, well, at a low intensity, fat is used for fuel. So relative fuel, relatively speaking, you are using more fat for fuel at a low intensity, which leads people to believe that they should just go and do, 60 minutes of steady state low intensity cardio and they're going to burn a bunch of fat. Relatively speaking, you will burn a lot of fat. Okay, but overall, you are not burning that much fat because the calories still matter, right? So if you have a low intensity and you're only burning 200 calories, but that 200 calories is coming from fat, that's okay. But if you're burning 1,000 calories, let's just say, and 600 of it's coming from fat, that's still better than 200 calories coming from fat, right? So I don't care if you try to get it specific and say, I want to do a lower intensity workout so that I get more fat utilization. That makes sense for your daily life, walking throughout the day, things like that, but not specifically for your workout. If your workout is a finite amount of time, you want the most bang for the buck, okay? So the moves that I would recommend, whether they're cardio oriented or not, okay, rower is a tremendous cardio source because you're moving your upper body and your lower body. Okay, your upper body has more peripheral resistance in terms of the arterial flow. The heart has to work harder to pump blood to the upper body. So when you're doing cardio moves that involve the upper body, you are going to get a stronger metabolic response and more calorie burn. Okay, the assault bike, things like that, where you have the actual fan bike, okay, where the upper body and the lower body is moving. Again, another phenomenal one. Okay, that's a tremendous piece of cardio equipment. Another one that I definitely recommend is going to be one that's like the upright rower, the skier, those things that are where you're gonna basically be pulling cables down. You don't just use your arms on that, you should be using your arms and your legs, okay, where you're actually squatting down, you're kind of exploding into almost a clean or snatch-like movement with them. So those are kind of in the CrossFit community, but if you're looking for pieces of cardio equipment to have at your house, they're ones that I would typically recommend because, again, most caloric bang for the buck when you are moving the full body. As far as lifts are concerned, squats, deadlifts, of course, are going to incorporate the most amount of muscle, therefore the most amount of calories. But one that gets left out a lot is going to be the lunge. Okay, here's the thing with a squat. It's a lot easier to end up in a painful situation and loading the spine with a squat. So even though pound for pound you can burn more calories during an actual squat movement, you are probably going to be able to get more out of a lunge. And here's the other thing we have to remember. Have you ever felt the burn in your quad doing a lunge versus doing a squat? It's a lot more pronounced in the lunge. So why I typically prefer a lunge over a squat is because I'm getting more of a lactate response. So I'm not only getting close to that caloric equality that I would get with a squat, but I'm also getting less pain, less compression on my spine, and I think I'm getting more of that lactate response, which gives me the metabolic benefit later on. Lactate, again, being that burn, which is going to send a signal to our brain to trigger adaptation. We used to think lactic acid was bad. Now we know that lactic acid and lactate, the dissociated form, is actually very good and sort of a rite of passage for our body to send the signal to repair and rebuild to get stronger. So we want the burn, we don't just want to fry ourselves. So just to recap, I know this is a lot. Elliptical, stair climber, steady state, isolation heavy moves, ditch them. They're really not doing you a whole lot of good unless you're doing just a little casual Stairmaster after your workout once the glycogen's already been burned up, okay? Now, cardio that you may want to consider, running, all with variable intensity, okay? Then with resistance training, you want to be doing any kind of heavy compound move, but you want to be really focusing on the lunge a little bit more. Assault bike, rower, and skier if you're looking for equipment for home or something that's available at the gym. I know this is a lot to take on and went beyond just what cardio is terrible, but hopefully you can get something out of it. I'll see you tomorrow.